Lou, they released a bunch of stuff today. What's your reaction in general? I don't know how much of you've seen, but can you give us your general reaction?
Yeah, George, let me first start by saying thank you very much for having me on today. And two, let me also congratulate you. Today's data dump from the Department of War, authorized by the President of the United States, I think serves as certainly vindication for all the hard work that you've done over the decades on behalf of the American people and there in Las Vegas. So let me just start the conversation that way. If there was ever a moment in time where I think you deserve a hell of a pat on the back, it's right now. Congratulations.
On you. I mean, somebody stepped out for that article in 2017 that changed the ball game. I've often wondered. I know you and I know each other well, and there have been ups and downs. Whether or not along the way you thought, did I make the right decision or not?
Every day, every day, George. So yeah, let me get back to your question since you asked it. So George, today, a lot of people remember last week when the first quote unquote tranche of UAP information was released to the American public. I think there was a mixed bag of reactions. Some people were a little bit disappointed. Other people were very excited. And I kind of fall into the category, probably somewhere in the middle. I thought it was an excellent start, right? You had documents coming out and recordings from NASA, where just last year alone, they said that, oh, look, nothing to see here, folks. NASA doesn't have any information relevant to UAPs. And all of a sudden turns out, oh, actually it did. In fact, there were pictures taken from the surface of the moon, right? Back in the early days of the Apollo mission, where NASA said, look, we didn't have satellites orbiting back then. These are likely very real. So that was the beginning. And then today, I think we had even much more significant data come out. And so we can certainly talk about the eaches if you like, but you had a whole plethora of information spanning all the way back to the late 1940s, involving none other than New Mexico, right? You've heard that before. Well, now you've had a lot of that confirmed, and you see the documentation in front of you. You have UFO reports from Iran. You have UFO reports from Russia, right? So this is not a U.S. only issue. This is a global issue we've been dealing with for a long time, and that's what we've been saying. You also have UFOs reports in video that anybody can see that actually show some of these things displaying some of the five observables, instantaneous acceleration, right? For example, and potentially transmedium travel and anti-gravity and all the things that we were looking at in the Pentagon are now available for everybody to see. And by the way, let me just emphasize this. There are a lot more videos out there, and some of these are in color for ultra, 4K, ultra high definition. But this, I think, is an excellent start. I think it is an absolutely excellent start right now for the American people to look at. It was a lot of data. It was 7 sub pages. Each one had multiple reports inside. And it's a great day for disclosure. It's a great day for transparency. And look, at the end of the day, whether you like the guy or not, the president is delivering on his promise. That's a fact. He's doing it. And so is the intelligence community, and so is Congress. I think we can't have this conversation without first thanking individuals in Congress who've been driving the train on this truth and transparency. Most notably, I think, is Rep. Luna and Rep. Burleson and Representative Burchett, who have long been pushing for transparency. Then you have folks that have been working hard behind the scenes, folks like Marco Rubio, Senator Mike Rounds, Senator Gillibrand, Chuck Schumer. The list goes on and on and on and on. So I think it was a great day for the American people, a great day for America, and great day for UFO enthusiasts.
Ron Futrell, jump on in.
I'm curious, Lou, and I've asked George this question before. What role you have played, Lou, in directing government officials towards this material? You've known for years that this stuff exists, and even more exists. What role have you played in the past, and will you continue to play in assisting government officials, current people now at the Department of War, to find this material and find more of it?
Yeah. Well, it's no secret, mostly because other people have said it, that I still try to assist the U.S. government whenever possible, whether it's executive branch or legislative branch. But the specific type of assistance that I provide, I'd rather let them answer that. But look, I've said over and over again, a lot of the things you're now seeing in the videos, I have said for the last 9 years, I personally witnessed when I was at the Pentagon when we were part of ATIP, part of the Pentagon's program. So it should be no secret that people are now seeing some of these videos that I saw, right, with these things flying in formation and being able to do all sorts of interesting things. Now the American people can see it for themselves, so they know that what I was saying was accurate. And by the way, there's a heck of a lot more there. I mean, there is a huge treasure trove of videos and data and reports that have yet to see the light of day. And I know I'm probably not answering your question directly. Forgive me, but I also want to be very cognizant of the fact that there are other people involved in this calculus, and what I don't want to do, is do anything to impede this flow of information. The faucet is finally opening, and I want that to happen. And two, I want to give these people the privacy and the latitude to continue doing what they're doing. It's working, and here we all are together, finally getting to see some of these videos that I knew had existed because I was there when some of them were taken.
Lou, do you know who makes the call on what gets released and which batch of files that go to the public? Who makes the final call on that? And do you get the sense that some of these agencies are being dragged kicking and screaming to do it? Because, the videos got released, there's no metadata, and there's no analysis that goes with them. And we were told, I saw it today on social media, we're going to let the public decide. You know that our government has decided on a lot of these things, whether they're legit or not.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a smart decision. They're treading very lightly. They're dipping the toe in the water before they do it, a cannonball off the high dive. And they're waiting to see the American public's reaction, and gauge that reaction appropriately. So I don't blame them. Now, let me answer your question specifically. Are there certain elements kicking and screaming? Absolutely. We know that already. There was a whistleblower, in fact, where some of the video came out last week, where we know for a fact that there were elements in the government that were trying to stifle and eavesdrop into whistleblowers and whatnot. So, yes, that element still exists. That element is still there. That some of those elements have threatened myself and my colleagues in the past, as you are aware. But as far as going back to the first question, is there a process that the government has or takes in order to declassify and review these things? Yes, there's something called an Original Classification Authority, or an OCA. And the OCA is basically the owner of classified information. They derive their authority directly from the President of the United States. So it requires an OCA approval. Now, there are some people, forgive the pun here, but who can trump that. And that is the President of the States. And also the Director of National Intelligence has a lot of pull. Now, we just learned today that, sadly, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has resigned for medical reasons, which I totally sympathize with. She's done a great job in her role as the DNI, specifically as it relates to UAP and disclosure. But there are certain elements in the U.S. government that do have the ability to review information, classified information, then allow that information to be released. But there's a calculus, George, that has to be considered. And that calculus is the protection of sources and methods. And so that's why when you look at some of these videos, they have these big black redactions and these censored kind of blocks on there, because there's still probably telemetry data that we don't want to necessarily share. Previous reports, a lot of them came out of the U.S. CENTCOM AOR, Central Command AOR, but you notice they don't really talk about the specific country. A lot of these were perhaps you could surmise that they're over the Persian Gulf, or perhaps over the Arabian Gulf, because you can see tankers and you can see oil derricks and platforms and things like that. But really, anything much more than that, the government's still, keeping under lock and key. And I think, honestly, George, for good reason. We don't want to look. We want to tell the American people the truth about what's going on, but what we don't want to do is tip our hands to any type of foreign adversary of the type of capabilities we have, right? So the administration and the intelligence community and the Department of War has to walk a very, very fine line. And it's not easy. I can tell you, I've been in that situation before, and it's kind of a catch-22. If you release too little, people are going to scream and cry and be unsatisfied. If you release too much, you can wind up compromising U.S. national security. So it's a tough job.
I'm curious when we're going to see, or if we're going to see, some of the stuff that, for example, that David Grush has said that the military has aircraft, bodies of dead pilots. Do you see that anywhere in the future of releases from the Department of War?
Ron, great question. That decision is not mine, of course, but I think as time continues, you're going to see more and more information come out. Maybe you don't see necessarily a photograph, but maybe you see a report, an official report of a documented crash, perhaps. Right? Again, I'm just kind of here pontificating. I don't know for sure because I'm not in a position to necessarily tell the administration what to do. But I think again, this is what you're seeing today was compared to last week's release. I think we have significant more information that people can really look at. If you know what you're looking at and you know how to analyze some of these videos, they are extremely compelling. People say, "Oh, they're grainy, black and white." Well, wait a minute. If you really know what you're looking at and you know how to decipher some of this stuff, you can see that these things are certainly they're not our technology for sure, and more than likely they are not foreign adversarial technology. So what they are, well, that's up for the government to continue to have that conversation with the American people. I already know what they are, but we have to give time to the American government to have this conversation with the American people. It's not up to Lou Elizondo to do that.
The public has checked in on that website a billion times already, and that was before today's release. So you can imagine there's a lot of interest around the world. Lou, UFO world is its own special planet, and anything short of the legacy program, show me the body, show me the craft, or I'm going to sit here and suck my thumb. That they're going to be demanding that to the end. You're a familiar. You've not only spoken about it, you testified under oath about those programs. It seems like that's the line in the sand for three-letter agencies about that's the part we're not going to get, no matter how much the public pushes or members of Congress push.
It's not necessarily that we won't get it. It's perhaps how we get it.
Right.
A lot of people, unless they see, like you said, pictures of dead bodies or something landing on the White House lawn, it's never going to be enough. But those people they don't want disclosure. They want confirmation, which is different. A lot of folks out there want the narrative that they've already preconceived in their mind to be validated, and anything short of that will never be accepted. But that's different than disclosure. Disclosure is simply saying, look, the fact is, yes, the government's been looking at this for a very long time. Yes, the fact is that we see them over sensitive military installations. Yes, the fact is that it is not our technology. Where it's from, what they're doing, et cetera, we still have to have that conversation. But I think a lot of people are confusing disclosure with confirmation. And that's part of the rub because I don't think the government's ever going to be able to give people confirmation of their individual narratives. And that's really not the government's job to do that anyways. It's really just to provide the truth, the data and the information. Then they'll allow the American people to make up their own mind how this applies to them individually.
When you look at what's being released in the last two releases that we've seen so far and more to come in the future, is there a part of you, Lou, that sort of wishes you were still with the Department of Defense, Department of War, and on the inside now and putting some of this stuff out? Or are you happy with where you're at?
Great question, Ron. I took an oath a long time ago to defend this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I've never been relieved of that oath. So, I still maintain my top secret security clearance for a very specific reason. It's now coming to light that when I left the Pentagon, I didn't leave the government entirely. I was working with David Grush at U.S. Space Force, specifically on the UAP topic. So, I suspect, there may be a role for old dogs like us, to on occasion to assist the government whenever it's needed. I'm certainly, I am always at the beck and call of my nation. Always have been. You can see this American flag behind me, and I remain a staunch patriot to our people, to our government, to our Constitution. I know I'm not answering your question directly, so I have to be
close enough. Close enough. Back to Tulsi Gabbard's resignation. As we all learned last week, the guy who was in charge of DIG, which is under ODNI, said another agency, a three-letter agency, had been spying on ODNI, which is its umbrella organization, spying on that organization as it invited whistleblowers in. We are both aware that that started last fall, that whistleblowers were brought in and then suddenly had their phones tapped, their computers hacked, surveillance. That is an astonishing revelation, especially in regard to UAP issues, because there was a very quiet UAP investigation under ODNI. You're aware of it.
Mhm.
What do you make of that? I mean, it's incredibly disturbing. It seems
Well,
like there would be
I
an
would say,
eruption.
yeah, I would say, look, unless you have a FISA warrant, you could go to jail. You should go to jail. You're spying on American citizens, period. Full stop. Unless you have a FISA warrant and you went to a FISA court and you have the ability to collect information on U.S. citizens, unless you are the FBI and you've got a court order to do so, you should go to jail. That is illegal, illegal, illegal. And whoever's doing that, if you're using intelligence equities to collect intelligence information on American citizens, then I got to tell you, you better watch out, because that is against the Constitution. It's against Executive Order 12333. It's against the National Security Act of 1947. It's against IRTPA of 2004 and the CI Enhancement Act of 2002. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So the bottom line is, if someone's doing that, they're doing something extra governmental activity. Am I surprised? No.
As you know, I mean, I was one of the first people they called in, along with Jeremy Corbell last fall. They had a conversation that said, we want to find whistleblowers. We're looking for the legacy programs. We have total clearance to go anywhere. And this is from Tulsi. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We were pretty excited about it. And that is not how it worked out for people who were in contact with ODNI folks.
Well,
can you comment on that?
Yeah, you're right, George. Well, first of all, I want to make sure we don't paint DNI with a broad stroke.
Right.
Because Tulsi,
right.
I can assure you, she wanted and still wants the truth to come out, whatever that truth is, right? But there were elements, unfortunately, within her organization, I think, that were not doing justice for her. May have had an agenda already, as we already are aware of, which is a shame, because it undermines the very spirit of what the president and the DNI were trying to achieve, and Congress and the Department of War. So we need to hold those individuals accountable. If it turns out that someone decided to put excuse the term, a sleeper agent deep inside DNI and the DIG to try to suppress information and obfuscate, then look, I'll put you up on criminal charges tomorrow. That's what I would do. I think it is. It's the only way. It's disgusting. I can't imagine anybody saying, yeah, sure, boss, that's a great idea. Let me go in and get into the DNI, worm my way in, and start spying on American people and whistleblowers. Think about that for a second. Not a great idea.
I've heard talk.
Go ahead, Ron.
That that there's people from the FBI and CIA trying to prevent a lot of this stuff from coming out. Who are some of the forces? What are some of the forces behind the scenes in the government trying to keep this information from the public, that have for years, certainly, and now are still trying to prohibit the, if you will, good stuff from coming out?
I will say I had one run-in with the FBI back in 2013 on a particular issue involving UAP, but since then they have been, my personal experience, and I can't speak for everybody else, I think they've been fantastic. The people that I have spoken to and with in the Bureau right now are patriots. They are doing their own investigations, and they're doing a damn fine job of doing it. Not that they tell me everything, and I don't want to know everything either. It's not my job. But if I can facilitate their efforts, I will. They are working very hard behind the scenes. And I'll tell you what, some of the information that they have is pretty compelling. Look, let's go back to the release today as an example. You had a senior, they released it, the government, a senior ODNI official, a senior intelligence officer on a helicopter that was, their whole job was to look for a UAP over a particular sensitive military installation. And the helicopter they were on was plagued by these orbs to the point where they came at one point 10 feet away from the helicopter, right? This is one of the investigators saying, "Yep, it's real. I saw it myself." I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I know it's probably an inconvenience to tell you what we saw, but we saw it, and so did a helicopter pilot. So did plenty of other individuals, and that was from a senior intelligence officer with the DNI. There are other individuals in the FBI, speaking specifically about the FBI, that I think at some point, if their reports were ever to be released, you might find some very compelling information. There's a lot of people. It's not a matter of belief anymore, right? I think we're past that. It's these things are real. Here they are. Okay, now let's get on with it. What do we do about it? And I think there's plenty of people in the FBI right now that feel that same way too. And I suspect I would never speak on behalf of the director of the FBI, but I think Kash Patel, if you were to ask my opinion, that he himself is very interested in this topic.
Final question, Lou. You're going on tour. You and the Rolling Stones, AC/DC, Lord Huron, all the big ones. All the big ones are going on tour. You had a speaking tour, and one of the early stops is here in Las Vegas, June 2nd. What will people see? What will they hear? What will they learn when they go to see you?
Well, thank you, George. That was very kind and gracious for you to mention that. Let me first caveat the reason why we're taking the show on the road, so to speak. It's called the Persona Non Grata Tour. So, the irony of the title, right? We're taking the conversation to the streets. I have some incredible guests, insiders that have worked the UAP topic for some time. We've had scientists, we have military individuals, we've got whole sorts, and we even have some members of Congress that will be participating in this. And this is really a conversation with the American people. This is a chance for people. I'll be doing a West Coast tour, then followed by an East Coast tour, where anybody out there, any Jack or Jane that has a question they want to ask somebody. For example, a Representative Burleson will be one of my guests who'll be in Dallas with me. If you have a question that you've been wanting to ask him, don't ask me. Here he is. You can ask him yourself, right? And so this is really a chance for the American public to take the conversation to the streets and be part of this conversation. Instead of just witnessing the conversation happening, you can actually be there. And then what we're going to do at some point is have all this wrapped up and put on YouTube for individuals for free, so they can also be part of that conversation.
Hey, well, anything else you want to throw in over today's events or your
No,
tour,
if anybody's interested in being part of this conversation, just check out my website and you can find a link to how to get your tickets. It's luiselizondo-official.com. And if anybody's interested, love to see you, and can't wait to have a great conversation with everybody. But George, I can't leave without saying again, look, you have been doing this now for decades and decades. What can I say? Congratulations, man. Here it is. You made it. You unlike a lot of folks, you've lived long enough to see the fruits of your labor come to fruition. So a heartfelt thank you for all that you have done. And you too, Ron. Thank you so much.
I bet you got a lot of demands on your time today, huh?
A little bit.
Thank you. I'm a newcomer in this world, but
Okay. Thanks, Lou. Appreciate it. Talk to you.
enjoying it.
Yeah.